Hello there, Force of Will players. Once again, I am Charlie DeMel, and today what I want to talk about is the Wanderer format moving forward into the GP that we're going to have in about a month from the release of this video in April. So, with the upcoming Wanderer event, there's going to be a primary issue with a infinite mana loop, infinite draw loop that's very easy to pull off. I'm sure some of you have maybe seen it on the Facebook group already, or Discord group, or anything like that. Maybe heard people talking about it, and it has to do with an interaction between two specific cards. Well, one specific card and then one that's kind of like a 2-up. So, what those cards are, the one main offender is going to be Tea Party before the Decisive Duel. So Tea Party before the Decisive Duel's primary problem is that it has, its effect text is remove this card from the game, and then this card gains, put it from your removed area into your grave, recover a stone you control, draw a card. And then your next Light Resonator also has Quick Cast, but that's fairly irrelevant for what we're trying to do. That secondary effect that this card gains, etc., in the removed area, is not a part of the resolution of the card. It is a continuous effect that gets applied as long as Tea Party somehow gets put into the RFG area. We've had confirmation that it doesn't work with stuff like Beatrice's Imagination or Barrier Seal, cards that would, if a card would move to the grave, it goes to the RFG instead. The card Tea Party just wouldn't be able to move in that case. So there's no issue with cards like that. However, there is issues with cards like Deathscythe. So what Deathscythe does is it removes 3 cards in your grave from the game, and then it adds Deathscythe from your grave to your hand. Now the primary issue with how these function with each other is that everything they're doing is cost. None of it is based off of effect. So Tea Party moving to the grave is part of its cost. Tea Party getting sent to the RFG is part of Deathscythe's cost. So there's no real way to interact with either portion of that combo. The combo in question, if you're curious or unsure about what it may be, is if you have 3 Tea Parties in your graveyard, or RFG and can move them to your graveyard, Deathscythe allows you to remove 3 Tea Parties from your grave. It puts the effect to return itself from your grave to your hand onto the chase. However, now all 3 Tea Parties are now in your graveyard. So now you can use as cost to put the 3 Tea Parties back, to recover a stone 3 times, and draw 3 cards. Now, you can once again use the effect of Deathscythe as cost to remove those 3 Tea Parties. So the biggest issue is the functionality that both the movement effects, in order to generate the value off of Tea Party, are both functionally cost. There's nothing that you can do as an opponent to interact directly with either of those parts of the card, basically. And your opponent can infinitely hold as much, as long as they want to hold priority for, and generate infinite will and draw infinite cards. Now, the reason I say it's 2 specific cards, but one of them's kind of different, you can use either Deathscythe, because both Deathscythes have the same removal effect. So there's the 2 mana one that got printed in that with the Alice Origins Rizard, and then there's the original 0 mana one that was just the original one printed in 7 Kings of the Land. So, why is this an issue? The biggest reason it's an issue is because we have effects that allow you to dump cards easily. Some of the different combo lines that people have found with this deck, or this, it's not even really a deck, you can kind of fit it into anything, which is also the issue, is it functions off of Harvesting Season. So if you're any Rune Ruler and you get a Darkness Stone on your first turn, you can Harvesting Season, and if you hit to a Deathscythe and 2-ish Tea Parties, if you hit all 3, you're there. If you hit 2, you can kind of get there. You win. That's just it. You win the game. You gain infinite mana, you draw infinite cards, your opponent can't do anything. They can't interact with it. They only have 1 mana after all. They're on Energize. You can Harvesting Season, so that's one of the options. Other options were people were looking at a card like Invitation to Valhalla. So here's Harvesting Season if you're curious on what it is. I forgot to pull up a thing for Invitation to Valhalla. So Invitation to Valhalla searches your hand, deck, or grave for any 4 cards, and you remove them from the game. So the Invitation to Valhalla loop is you can remove a Heart-to-Heart Talk / Maria Bella, 2 tea parties. I'm already forgetting the names. 2 tea parties, and then a Deathscythe. You can use the 2 tea parties, draw 2 cards, produce 2 will, play the Maria Bella from your RFG, get an improved healing robot, put the Deathscythe back into your grave, and then start the loop as long as you have other cards that you can remove with Deathscythe. The Invitation to Valhalla one is a little bit slower, however, it guarantees to get you all of the combo pieces. So those are the 2 main things that people are doing with Tea Party. And again, the issue predominantly is the fact that Tea Party is on a continuous effect. It isn't like Heart-to-Heart Talk, which gains that effect as part of the resolution. So we've put in a couple requests directly to hopefully before this next Wander event is to either A, get Tea Party banned because it serves too much of a purpose. Like its functionality is too generic in order for you to try and ban the other quote-unquote combo pieces like Harvesting Season, Deathscythe, other things like that. You would have to ban too many cards just to stop what Tea Party is doing, so it is better just to ban Tea Party outright. The other thing is to try and get a functional errata in order to make it work as Heart-to-Heart Talk works. The functional errata would just be you delete the paragraph spacing, effectively. Again, no one really likes erratas like that. They're kind of hard to work with. It's not how the card was initially designed, right? Things like that. However, we've seen quite a few games, we've play tested quite a few games between Tea Party mirrors where the players simply go first, hit Harvesting Season, and win the game. And I believe they did the math on a geometric calculator, and you have, I think, a 95% chance to hit all the pieces. So there's practically no way for you to lose the game off of a Harvesting Season. It is infinitesimally small. Now there are counters, right? So if they do not ban Tea Party going into this event, there are different counters to what Tea Party decks are trying to do, but it depends on the Tea Party deck. Invitation to Valhalla is a little bit different, right? Other than like the Harvesting Season turbo it out. So people have predominantly been playing Brunhild, at least in the testing groups that we've been doing, because you can do some stuff with Einherjar's summon that can kind of make that effective, almost puts it at a 100% guaranteed chance that you always hit the combo. So Brunhild has turned out to be the most consistent because of Einherjar's summon. However, you can move into Hanzo in order to, I thought I had a Hanzo pulled up. You can move into Hanzo in order to play Sealing Scroll in order to cancel their Harvesting Season, but then if you're playing against another Hanzo, your Harvesting Season is still just free because your Sealing Scroll can cancel your opponent's Sealing Scroll, so that doesn't really do anything. The other option is Don't Cheat. Any deck can play Don't Cheat, so if your opponent is trying to play Harvesting Season from their rune area, you can use Don't Cheat in order to stop the cast for free, right? The final option is Dante. Dante just hard stops everything. Dante will always beat Tea Party. So first of all, Deathscythe just won't even have the removal effect, but Tea Party will be unable to gain the effect through Dante's God's Art's text. The other thing with that is because of how Energize works, and there's no real way to cheat mana a whole lot anymore with the banning of Carlina and Feathsing, is a Dante deck that is predominantly green. All 10 of your stones in your main deck are green. If you go first and you call a stone with Dante, you have a guaranteed Lorite / Fair spell. So if your opponent attempts to cancel your God's Art, you have 1 will to pay for it. And because there isn't really a whole lot of free stuff anymore, we haven't found anything yet, maybe there's something, that can go through a form of interaction to prevent Dante's God's Art from resolving. So when Dante's God's Art resolves, a Tea Party deck effectively loses the whole infinite. That's just what it's trying to do. So moving into this format of tea party decks or anti-party decks, um, it becomes a huge issue of rock, paper, scissors practically, but at a very large percentile. So what do I mean by that? So if I'm playing a Tea Party deck and I run into a hard control like Dante list or something akin to that, something doing something similar, then I'm going to get hosed, basically. I'm going to have a very small win rate percentage against that type of deck. If I'm playing the hard control Dante list, there might be a chance that people are just not playing Tea Party decks, expecting people to play a bunch of Tea Party hate, which means my win rate as the anti-Tea Party deck is going to drop significantly against those decks that just aren't Tea Party, depending on my list and how it fares well against the other decks in the metagame. The third option is you play a deck that has little or inconsistent outs to Tea Party, which means your win rate against Tea Party decks drops significantly, because if they ever just get the combo going, you're going to lose. But you get a higher win rate against the anti-Tea Party decks. So you get, again, this rock, paper, scissors format of an infinite that can't be stopped without certain blanket effects or trying to stop the initial cast of cards. You get the deck that stops it with blanket effects, all practically guaranteed, or you get a third deck that is going to hose every version that is there to stop the infinite, but doesn't have a consistent way to stop the infinite, and you'll potentially get hosed by that. So it's an unfortunate situation that we're in, and I just wanted to kind of make this video to make people aware of why people aren't really excited or happy about the upcoming Wanderer event. Wanderer is a very fun format. I am glad that they are changing over to primarily Wanderer, especially if it has an updated ban list. The biggest issue right now that we're facing is this thing with Tea Party. With the Tea Party Infinite gone, I do believe the format opens up quite a lot. I'll even have a tier list video that I'll be posting a little bit in the future, depending on what kind of info we get regarding Tea Party. And then outside of that, I think the format's just in a good spot. It's very fun. It's fun to play with your old cards, with old power cards, bring different rulers back with newer cards, right, that have been power crept a lot. But yeah, so just putting this video out there. I do hope I see some of you at the Wanderer event anyway, regardless of what happens with Tea Party. Rock, paper, scissors formats can be fun. It can be a whole lot of mental gaming before you go into the event and while you're in the event, which can be a little bit fun to play with, but ultimately it's not healthy for a meta in order to sustain itself. But again, I've been Charlie DeMel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.